So the tantrums, the aggression, the picky eating, just him being vacant and not speaking, it was a lot to deal with. And then when he'd hear loud noises, he used to hold his ears like this and he'd scream, he'd cry. Like now he can tell you it's too loud because he can talk now. But before he couldn't. He was using vocabulary I didn't know that he actually had,
Isn't it incredible?
He was reasoning and he was asking questions.
I have Yvonne here with me today, and I'm really, really excited about this because Yvonne is in my community and I noticed her in the beginning of her journey, and she's one of those rare individuals that just goes all in. And I wanted to talk to Yvonne about her journey in the beginning of it, because often we talk to moms who are done completely with the turnaround process.
Yeah.
But I want to bring hope to moms from a mom who's already seeing great changes based on what she's doing in the beginning phases, because sometimes it takes a long time and sometimes it actually doesn't have to.
Mm-hmm.
So I am honored to be able to share a moment with you, Yvonne, and maybe you would start by talking a little bit about who you are and taking us back to the darkest moment in your time as an autism mom.
Sure. So hi everybody, my name is Yvonne. I am a mum of 4 children, a wife, and I also work as well, and I homeschool as well. I wear many hats.
Wow.
So I came across Ninka's program last year after searching for quite a long time about how to help my son. I have a 6-year-old son. His name is Simi, and he has autism. He recently got a diagnosis. I actually watched Ninka's podcast about the diagnosis thing, and I don't know if him having a diagnosis helps, because they always say that autism cannot be healed. And there's only, all they can do is just, offer therapies to help him, and help you manage autism, but it can't be healed. And I refuse to believe that. I'm a person of faith, and I've always known that God is a healer and God can heal. And I've always been praying. I noticed my son, the first time I noticed when he had issues was when he was about 2 years old. I was a bit distracted around that time because I was juggling a lot of things. I was trying to work, and I had his younger sister who is just a year apart from him. And I didn't really have much to compare him to, because my oldest daughter, he's the second born, and my oldest daughter is 19. So there's quite a big age gap between the two. When I had him, she was 12, and she's neurotypical. Yeah. So when I had him home for about 8 months, then I put him in nursery. So as a baby, it's difficult to tell if there's a problem. But a bit later on, when he was like sort of 1, 2, he wasn't meeting his milestones properly. He wasn't talking. He wasn't giving eye contact. He was very hyper as well. And when he was a baby, it was easy to feed him the foods I wanted to give him. But as he got older, he became very picky. He'd only want to eat white things, like, things, white rice with no gravy on it, and things like that. And he was very particular about food. I also noticed that I didn't breastfeed, unfortunately, because I didn't have, Simi was born prematurely. And I didn't have enough supply when he was born. So I did try, but nothing was coming out. So we went straight onto formula. And formula has fluoride, and it has, the tap water has fluoride as well. So we were using formula with tap water to feed.
Was it a dairy-based formula?
Yeah, it was,
Yeah.
what was it again? Aptamil, dairy based. Yeah.
Same thing with my son. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I did try the breastfeeding, but it was so hard. And, he wasn't even latching on. So I just thought, why am I stressing? I need to feed the child. Anyway, cut a long story short, he wasn't breastfed. And then later when he wasn't meeting his milestones, he wasn't speaking. And the nursery said to me, maybe your son has special needs. And I was like, what? There's no way that my son has special needs. What are you saying? I don't label things. You can't label my child and say that my child has special needs. We were in denial, my husband and I. Yeah. We didn't want to hear anything about special needs, No, because we know that it can be, I've seen children who have special needs before, and it's a lot for parents, and for family to take on. So eventually we had to come to terms that something wasn't quite right. So as he progressed, his behavior became very violent.
Yeah. And when was this, Yvonne? Around what age?
Between the ages of 3 and 5, Yeah. Even when he turned 6, he was violent. Like we'd take him out and he'd lash out. He'd throw himself on the floor. He'd have tantrums. The time that springs to mind is when I went to Asda shopping one time, with him and his sister. She was in the trolley and I was pushing him along. He wanted me to buy something for him, and I couldn't. I had to wait till I paid for it before I gave it to him. And he just lost it. He went completely ballistic. He was hitting me, scratching me, punching me, screaming in the middle of the supermarket. And I was just holding him like this with one hand, and he was punching me and all of that. I had to put my shopping on the trolley, on the belt, and just try to keep going as he was doing that. But we had several outbursts like that, and he'll scream out loud at the top of his lungs, and people just turn around and look at me like, wow, Another time we went to the park, and there were other children there. There was a lake. He wanted to go into the lake,
Yeah.
So many times we've been to the park, he would run away. He would just, off he goes, and you will shout, come back, where are you going? And he doesn't listen. He's just, gone. There was a time where he wasn't giving any eye contact. He wouldn't respond to his name. I had to take him for speech and language therapy. That helped a little, but it didn't quite get to the root cause of things, Mm-hmm. So the tantrums, the aggression, the picky eating, just him being vacant and not speaking, it was a lot to deal with. And having also another child as well, it was just too much, But I have to say, when I came across the information that you shared, I started first following you on Instagram, and I started to, I didn't know about the course yet. I was just getting bite-sized chunks of information about your son and how you helped him to overcome his issues. And I started to follow little things like, here and there, go outside with no shoes on, grounding. Mm-hmm. We did that a lot in the summer, and going out in nature. I personally love being out in nature, and so does my son. It's so healing.
Yeah.
And we tried going out in nature with no shoes on. All of us did it, me, my daughter, my younger daughter, and him as well. And it was a good experience for us, and I felt like that helped him to come out of his shell, and he started to connect to us a bit better, Mm-hmm. The first time I heard him talking was when he was 4. When I say speaking, I mean like requesting for things, and trying to communicate with us, because before he was like in his own zone. He'd play by himself, even at the nursery. We thought that they were excluding him when we'd go and pick him up, because he was always, if there was a circle and there was circle time, he was always outside of the circle, playing with trains, lining them up.
Yeah. I remember that from my son. Yes. Identical. Yeah.
And at first I thought, oh, that's cute that he's lining up the toys. He's so clever lining things up. not knowing that that was a red flag and that there was something wrong, you know. But later on, I realized that other children don't really play that way, because his sister wasn't playing like that. She's neurotypical, you know. And then when he'd hear loud noises, he used to hold his ears like this, and he'd scream, he'd cry. Like, now he can tell you it's too loud because he can talk now, but before he couldn't talk, you see. And what I noticed, something that stood out, and this is quite a recent thing, when we cut out gluten from his diet, he made massive changes, you know, to his whole personality. He was using vocabulary I didn't know that he actually had, you know.
Isn't it incredible?
He was reasoning and he was asking questions, you know, and he was saying to his sister, one time he wanted to watch TV and his sister was getting on his nerves. So he said to her, Jada, do you want to go to the kitchen and get an orange? Because she likes oranges. So he's observed that she likes oranges. And he said to her, you know, basically, leave me alone, go away. He's trying to tell her, you know. And this is a boy who couldn't really articulate himself. He used to speak using echolalia. He was scripting, like he'd watch a program from TV and he'd just copy the words from what he watched, you know. And that's what he'd do. And, you know, he'd occasionally tell me what he wants, what he learned in speech and language therapy. But before he could talk, he'd normally grab my hand and lead me towards something that he wants. You know, he wasn't using his language. I don't know if it was, see, I've been trying to find out the cause. What was it that made him sick, you know?
Yes.
When he was in my stomach, I had a lot of ultrasounds, scans. And it's only recently I found out that ultrasound can cause autism in children. And I don't know if that's it, but because they said he was small and I had low PAP-A, they said I need to have several growth scans. So I was there every other week having growth scans, not knowing that it could have potentially caused a problem. And then on top of that, he was born at 36 weeks, which was preterm. And they said when a child is born preterm, they could have difficulties. You know, they could have, what do they call it? Difficulties are how do I say? They could get types of developmental issues, excuse me. That's what I'm trying to say, So I don't know if that's what caused it. And I was just thinking, what did I do? God, why is it me? Why me? Why did you let this happen to me? You know, this is too much for me. I can't cope, you know? And what really hit home for me was what you said to me when you said, autism is a message, you know? And it's about you changing. You've got to change something in your life, you know? That's a message from God telling you that you need to change, you know? And autism happened before your son was born. It happened before. So I was like, this makes sense because, I mean, I've always been a Christian, you know, but there's a Christian and there's a Christian, you know. I don't know if you know what I mean.
Works-based and faith-based, yes.
So there was times where I mean, you know, you go to church, but you're not really taking it seriously, you know. But I feel like the way I lived my life before was not really I wasn't in a good place, you know. I'd drink, I'd smoke, abusing my body, you know, and, you know, not really treating myself and loving myself how I should. And I feel like I need to change, like, you know, just like your program says, you need to change first before your child can change. And I had to change, and I'm still changing, I'm still evolving. It's very difficult working on yourself, you know. But you know, I'm very happy with the changes I'm seeing with Simi now. He's 6 now. He's doing very well. He's able to read. He can read. I'm teaching him writing. And he can have a conversation with me. We're not completely out of the woods, though. Yeah, we still have a lot of work to do. I still need to go through the program in detail. As you know, I had another baby 4 months ago. So I've kind of been a bit distracted and really not moved on from phase 1 yet. But I have every intention of moving on to catch up with all the phases. But so far, just from the little information that I've got from you, foods that trigger aggressive behaviour and tantrums and all of that, and symptoms, I've tried my best to cut back on those and to try and introduce a variety of foods into his diet. And that has really helped a lot. It's made such a massive difference to our lives. And my husband, I prayed to God. My husband, when I met him, was a man of faith. Yeah.
Yeah. Lucky woman.
Well, it's not always straightforward, is it, Ninka? Because
I know.
He was a man of faith, and then I don't know what happened, but he kind of slipped off the way. So I prayed. I just wanted my husband to be a priest of our house, because I feel like I believe in headship, that the man should be the head and he should be the priest, because there's an order. If you look at the Bible, there's an order of family, and the man should be the head, and the woman, and then the children. Christ, then the man, then the woman, then the children.
Yes.
In that order. Yeah. So I was praying. I said, Father, please let my husband become the priest of this house. And just before we stopped having gluten, my husband started praying a lot. He started praying a lot, praying. And he was anointing all of us with olive oil, anointing oil. And that was actually in phase 1. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to, take time to pray and anoint with olive oil. And he was already doing that phase for us, you see. Wow. And I'm very pleased that doing that and then having the gluten-free diet, that really, really, God is answering the prayers, and it's evident. It's so evident in the way my son behaves. He's a lot calmer. Before, you'd ask him to do something, and he wouldn't. He'd ignore you. He wouldn't even look at you. He'd just be in his own world. You have to ask a few times, or you literally have to tap him and say, hey, I'm talking to you. Can you, and now if I ask him to do something, I might have to ask once or twice, but he'll say, okay, mama. He calls me mama, just like his little sister. Okay, mama. And then he'll go do it, and when we go outside, he's a lot calmer, because when we used to go in the car before, if we went a different way than the way that he wants to go, he'd lose it. He'd completely go ballistic. He'd scream, he'd bang on the window. One time we were driving and he held onto my hair in the middle of traffic, I was so afraid. I didn't know what to do. I was like, there were times when I was so bewildered, Ninka, I'd cry and I'd just say, why? I don't know what to do, God, please help my son, heal my son, and then I came across you. And I feel like that was an answered prayer, because I didn't know what to do. I had fragmented information here and there, okay, gluten-free diet. Okay, what was it? There was this protocol of where this lady was saying you should have bleach. They were mixing bleach.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Did you hear about that?
Yeah. I know.
Mixing bleach with water and then doing like a parasite cleanse. And then I heard about glutathione shots. And then I heard about, so many different protocols. There was the Nemichek protocol.
Yeah.
And when I read the things that they were doing, my spirit was just like, no. I don't want to introduce chemicals to my baby, because I don't really know what the side effects of these chemicals. Glutathione, I was considering giving him glutathione in the liquid form, the oral form. Yeah. And I just thought, I don't know what is in glutathione. How can I just give it to him without actually, So I just thought, no, until I find a specialist who knows what they're talking about, I'm just going to wait. I'm going to wait on the Lord, and I'm just going to wait until he sends the right person. I even met somebody who was doing this therapy, rhythmic movement therapy.
Yeah.
We tried that, and it did help. It did help a little bit, but it wasn't giving us all the results that we needed, until I found you, and you're an absolute godsend, and I'm so grateful for the information that you've given in your turnaround course, and also that you've given freely on Instagram. It's helped a lot, and I know through testimonials on listening to the podcast and listening to you, autism can be healed, and I've always known that God can heal.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what was it for you? So you've described how he was eloping, aggressive, running away, jumping out in dangerous situations. That feeling of constantly having to monitor your child, it was exactly the same with mine. Breastfeeding, hospital birth, premature birth. And then to now where he's speaking, he's communicating, can you describe a little bit more about how his behavior is now compared to what you were seeing? And then I want to ask you some questions about your perspective of what the message was for you. But compared to then, where you were in these dangerous situations, in my case, we had to stop driving cars, and we had to stop being together as a family because it was too dangerous. He was so aggressive. Mm-hmm. So compared to that, what's life like with him now in your family?
So like I said before, we haven't quite got out of the woods yet. We're still trying to do everything we can, because you know what, the regression is real. Yeah,
totally.
Regression is so real, and I'm home educating him at the moment. That was a choice because I didn't want to send my son to school not being able to speak, and something might have happened to him and he can't tell me. That was breaking my heart. So I decided to keep him at home. Life with him now is a lot better. It's a joy, actually. When I take him out and he comes home and he tells me, well, Mum, I had a really good time at the park today. I enjoyed myself. The other day they went out with Dad in the snow, and he came back and he said, we had a great time in the snow. Little things like that are so rewarding, because he wasn't able to say that before. He wasn't. When we used to go out to the park, there was a time in the park where I took him and his sister out on their scooters, and this was a massive park, Ninka. He literally left me behind on his scooter. He saw somebody came by him on roller skates, and he started to follow that person because he likes to race. He's a typical boy. And he was racing along the person, and he left me behind, and I couldn't keep up with him in a massive park. And his sister was following, and I was on my feet running behind them. I was so scared. I was thinking somebody's going to snatch my baby and take him away, But now, and he went around the circumference of the whole park. And then I finally caught up with him and had to take his scooter away, But that's just to show you how he used to be. But now if we go out and I say to him, I can give him instructions when he's on his scooter, and I can say, hey, wait, stop. And before we go, I say, hey, if Mommy says stop, what do? We stop, we wait. And he'll say, okay, Mom. Whereas before, he would just not pay any attention to me, anything I'm saying. I was even afraid to take him out on the scooter,
So now you are no longer having to keep your eyes on him to keep him safe.
No, I'll always keep my eyes on him.
Yeah.
Always, because he's only 6. But I'm not as afraid as before, because he actually, when he goes a little bit further on his scooter, he'll turn around and look for me. Sometimes he'll even stop and wait.
Yeah.
Whereas before, he wouldn't.
spatial awareness he knows, and social skills and emotional skills.
Yes, he's
because
getting
he
there.
knows you're there. He looks back, because it's that feeling of them just not knowing the danger, not knowing where we are at, and just get caught up in the moment and disappear.
Yeah. He knows I'm there.
Yeah.
Another time where, you know, he's very protective over his little sister, you know. He always wants to know, where's Jada? So if we're out in the park and he can't see her, we'll say, he'll come to me and he'll say, this is now, Mom, where's Jada? You know? And I'll say, oh, she's over there. And another time there was a man who was leaving the park with his little daughter and she didn't want to leave. So he put her on his shoulder and she was screaming and crying and kicking off. And my son ran after the man and pushed him, you know, because he was thinking he's doing something to the little girl, you know.
Incredible.
Yeah, so I need to help. So he pushed him and I said to the man, I'm so sorry. I think he just thinks that you're hurting her. So he's trying to protect her, you know. Yeah, and on the he's doing so well with his reading, his writing now. We had a bit of a setback a few weeks ago. He had some gluten at a home education group we went to. He sneaked in some cookies while I wasn't looking. I think one of the mums was handing out food and he quickly grabbed it and he, you know, I did complain and say, look, you know, you need to ask parents first if their children can have things, you know, so. But then that was that. And then we had a party, end of year party on Wednesday. I brought his own snacks in, you know, but he sneakily had a breadstick, you see. Yeah. And I noticed when he has those things, he becomes very, very aggressive, moody, snappy, you know, irritable, impatient, and he fights more with his sister, you know. Yeah. He doesn't want to share his toys. He's quite obsessed with trains. He's got a thing about trains. Even now, he's still got this thing about trains, Thomas the Tank Engine, all the Thomas, he knows all of them. He goes on YouTube and, you know, that's what he's fixated on. He looks online to find all the different motorized Thomas trains.
Yeah.
Buy them for him. Did I answer your question?
Yes, and I'm just noticing so many beautiful things that's happened. So from your perspective, when it to me it seems like there's a spiritual message from these children that is something that God, he's sending them to teach us about walking in purity and innocence and integrity. And then it's almost like there's a biological message. There are so many messages that these children are individually bringing to each family and each community. So from your perspective, what are the messages that you have seen from your perspective that this child has brought you and your family? What was it that needed to change for you?
I must walk in integrity because I wasn't doing that before. I lived a life where if I wanted something, I'd just go for it. And I wouldn't be worried about the consequences. And I was very selfish. And it was, you know, the pleasures of sin are just for a moment, they're fleeting, you see. And then sometimes the sin is not even worth the after effect that comes after you do it, you see. So I just wanted to do what I wanted to do, live my life how I wanted to live it, use my body how I wanted to use it. And that includes, you know, partying, drinking, taking drugs, you know, and things like that. And I don't look like the type, but I was a bit wild. I was a bit wild when I was younger, you know. And that was
temptation.
I used to fall for temptation a lot. And it wasn't a thing for me. I wanted it, so I'd just go for it, you know. But there was a time when I fell flat on my face and I was I knew the things that I was doing were not good, and I was very unhappy. Okay. And I asked God, and I said to God, I went down on my face crying, and I broke down, and I said, God, please help me, take me out of this place that I'm in, you know. And from then onwards, it was like, that was when I wanted to connect more, you know, and be plugged in to the Most High even more. But I did that, but I still kind of like continued to do certain things that were not in line with His will and His purpose for my life, you know. And this was before giving birth to my son. So I feel like He had to send my son to me as a wake-up call to say, you know what, you need to live your life right. Because by you living your life right, generations that come from you are going to be affected if you live right or if you live wrong. You see, so you need to change, because you're going to be an example to other people. You're a character who is, people are attracted to you for whatever reason. So when they see you doing good, you've got an influence on them to do good. When they see you doing bad, you also have that same influence. So you need to walk in integrity. And I feel like that is why my son was sent to me, to tell me that, hey, Yvonne, you need to change, you need to fix up. You have to stop living the life you were living before. And, you know, you really need to consider other people's feelings and not be so selfish, you know, about the things that you want, and actually put people first sometimes and not just yourself, because I was very much like that. So for me, that's the main message that stands out, is, you know, to walk in integrity and to become the best version of myself. And it is so hard to work on yourself, you know, and to change. It's, you know, when I first came across your message about stress types, what is yours? Is it stress type? Yeah. I didn't understand it at first. It took me a while to kind of like get my head around what it meant. But then it started to hit home, you know, later on. What are your stress types? What are your enemies of progress? You know? And that really helped me to think about things from a logical perspective. You know, sometimes you hear something and it doesn't resonate in your mind straight away, but later on, it drops, you know, and then you're like, wow, these are the issues that I actually have. I'm an overthinker. I think too much without taking action about things, and it hinders me. And that makes me procrastinate, you know. And then I spend too much time on social media. I had to delete my TikTok account, you know, because am I talking too much? Am I saying too many things?
Were you what type were you, a thyroid or cortisol type?
Cortisol.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
Cortisol, yeah.
And what was it in the course that put things into a structure that made it possible for you to get to where you're at now, do you think?
Because I'm still in the very first phase of the course, and haven't really moved on from there yet. Because, okay, this is not an excuse, it's more of a reason, you know. I felt like I haven't really had much time to myself to dedicate to doing the course properly. But with my son, as he's getting older, his routine is starting to change, and he's sleeping a lot more in the night. So I can actually get more involved in it. Yeah. So I don't want to say that there's a few things that hit home for me about that course, you know, but one of them was actually finding out what are the enemies of progress in terms of like things I do that stop me from achieving results, you know. And I never ever asked myself that question before. And it made me have a look at myself properly and say, wow, I've never actually examined myself in this way to see how I can become a better person. But for my son to change, I need to become different first. You see?
Yeah. So that makes sense. And so how many years have you been going through this process? If you start from when you realized, okay, there's something I can do and there's something I want to do, and you felt called by God to do that, until now, how many months have you been doing?
Definitely less than a year. Definitely less than a year.
Incredible, right?
Yeah.
Incredible.
Because I only started following you recently, not too long ago, a few months ago. I was messaging you like crazy on Instagram. And trying to get information about your course, etc. And then you responded, which I was quite happy about. And when I got the information, then I was just like, you know what, let me try and work on these things, because I had lots of information before the course from you, and I thought I'd take those little bits of information, but then I thought, no, I need to know more. Then there was the turn. You had a different type of course before. Then this is the new one, the turnaround one. Yeah.
Okay. And if you go back to who you were before, when you were told there's nothing you can do, and when you went from denial to realizing this is not good, and I'm not going to believe when they say to me there's nothing you can do. If you go back to that mom, and we know that there are thousands of moms out there listening right now to you talk about this, what would you say to these moms who feel overwhelmed or completely exhausted, afraid, scared, stressed, because there's all this noise, all the violence, and this love for your child, but also frustration, because it's really hard to be hit by your child. It's hard to chase your child all the time. So what words of comfort could you bring to a mom who's in that phase?
Well, I would definitely say that healing is 100% possible, and it's within your reach. It's within your reach. It's not something that you can't obtain. You can 100% obtain it. You just need the right information. The Bible says that my people perish for a lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
Once you have knowledge and you have understanding of what to do, as we can find in your course, it does make an incredible difference. And I believe that if I keep going this way, my son, will completely turn around,
Yeah.
He's already made so many leaps and bounds with the small information that I have. So imagine if I'm following everything to a T, exactly how I should, how much progress we're going to get. And my prayer is for God to turn our trial into a testimony. And I can already see it happening, I can already see it happening. So I would say healing is 100% possible. Don't believe them when they tell you that you can't recover your child and your child will be autistic forever, and all you can have is just therapy, speech and language therapy, or behavioral therapy, or occupational therapy, and that's all you can do. There's so many different pathways to healing, and this is one. If you do the turnaround course, there's so many things that Ninka brings to light that do actually make tangible differences and will actually heal your child, and bring that child to the best possible version of themselves. And not just the child, but you as well. You will become the best possible version of yourself. You have to do that first. You have to do the work on yourself first before your child can change as well. So that's my message of hope.
Thank you so much.
Seeing it in my life.
And I think it's really important to understand that these things that happen with these children, it is beyond our ability as humans. That's why it looks like miraculous healing, because it has to be something that glorifies God and not us. So it is supernatural. And this is where so many people get taken off track and stray into New Age or other weird practices, which I did as well, because it is such a spiritual journey. It is such a powerful wake-up call from God. And the turnaround, the change in these children are actually so miraculous that it can only come from God. And that's how ultimately God is glorified through this work. And we just need to be humble and give him all the praise for it. I'm just so grateful that I've been given tools to try and remind moms of what healing really is and what well-being really is, how sacred the temple of the body is, and how many ways this world just messes with that and tempts us into destruction of our soul, our families, our bodies, and our children. So I really want to thank you so much for bringing that hope today, Yvonne. And I am just so honored and humbled to have you in my family, and to have you in this tribe of sisters, and to bring hope to those who are not yet with us, and to those who are, because we have to realize and also be honest, as for some moms who even choose to do the process and the course, it can take months and years to have the energy to do it. It's not an easy job. It is not an easy job, and it takes a long time.
Yes.
Thank you for taking time to share your story, and I cannot wait to follow you as we go along and walk through this path together. And I really hope that this has brought some insights for moms who are in despair and doesn't know what to do next, that if we lean in faith, and if we listen for the clues and the signs, we will be guided, and that healing can happen. We see this all over again and again and again, also in the community. But you even saw that in your own circle of friends and family. So thank you so much. God bless you, sister, and talk to you soon.
Bless you, Ninka. Thank you.